Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. This week we continue our celebration of Veterans Day and the birthday of the United States Marine Corps. And today we feature one of our favorite Marines, Robin Dreeke. He's the author of several books, most recently The Code of Trust and American Counterintelligence Experts' 5 Rules to Lead and Succeed. And It's Not All About Me, the top 10 techniques for building quick rapport with anyone. He's an expert in social psychology and the application of science behind relationship development. He's a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, was a Marine Corps officer, and spent 21 years with the FBI, where he was the lead instructor at the Counterintelligence Training Center in all behavioral and interpersonal skills training. He was an adjunct instructor for the FBI's National Academy and head of the elite behavioral analysis program of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division. In other words, he was the best of the best when it came to thwarting the activities of the enemies of the United States. And now he's sharing his expertise with those of us who use interpersonal skills to build healthy personal and strategic business relationships and help those around us to get the most out of themselves. This show's co-hosted by another great Marine, one of our favorite authors, a pretty frequent contributor to the Break It Down show, and someone we're lucky to call our friend, Scott Huesing. I know you're going to love this episode and get a lot from it. Scott and Pete, let's get this party started with Robin Dreeke.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summit.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hello, my name's Robin Dreeke, author of The Code of Trust. I'm with you on the Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, we have Robin Dreeke back on the show. We actually just had Mike Adams on, who also was a former spy, counterintelligence, or actually he was a clandestine service with the CIA, and so it just so happens that it's all spies all day long today. And of course, remotely in studio with me is Echo and Ramadi best-selling author Scott Huesing. So we've got a couple of best-selling guys, and I'm excited to have the both of you on the show with me.
Great to be here, Pete. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm glad as usual to be flying Comfort Plus on the Break It Down show. I've been upgraded in status by Pete.
Yeah, you're almost in first class. You're right
I'll
there.
Make it. That's my goal now with the programs. So
yeah, you guys both fly a lot. Does getting on the plane first excite you, or do you care about that at all? Because that's always promoted as like a feature, and I'm glad to be the last guy on.
For me, it's so funny. I literally just went and got my pre-check stuff done because I retire in a couple weeks, and it's going to be the first time in 21 years I actually got to go through normal screening. So it's going to be a little strange. So I'm used to getting on the plane first. Yes, absolutely. And so I don't know what I'm going to do when I actually got to travel normal. It's going to be a bit of an experience.
Suffer like everybody. It's pain.
That's why I did my pre-check. Hopefully it works out decently. We'll see.
I think that pre-check is more grueling than the SSBI you got to do for your background investigation to get a TSSCI clearance in the government or in the military. It's
yeah, I know. It was pretty interesting going to the DMV and having DMV fingerprint me. So, all right.
It's funny because you do all the SSBI stuff, and I remember I was working on doing my periodical review, and I was having trouble logging in through the Army because I was deployed. I was having trouble logging in through the Army site, to get on to actually code the information into the government's website to decide if my clearance would be active as I was using my clearance. And then, like a couple of days later, the Chinese broke in and stole all of it. I'm like, wait, the Chinese can get in, but the guy with the clearance can't. Makes a lot of sense.
They probably broke it and restole it because they lost it or something. So they probably had it long before then.
Yeah.
They're just updating their files is what they were doing.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked to you a while back, and we talked about the Code of Trust and how you and I both use trust as our main lever to get people to, to respond to us, to interact with us, because in our line of work, we've got to go out and we've got to, you and I would say we've got to build trust with people that are probably the worst people on earth or are directly our enemies. And it's not an easy thing to do. And if you think that we can go into a village and do this dance where everybody's just mystified and gives us all the information, I'm here to tell you, it just doesn't work that way. But Scott, you've also been a commander in a combat zone. What kind of time do you have for us to build trust? And what kind of tolerance would Commander Scott have for me saying, Scott, I've got to build trust with the enemy?
Well, I think Robin nailed it in his book, Code of Trust, and the basic 5 points that he lays out. And probably the best one that resonates with me is suspending your ego. When he wrote that, I thought, well, it's simple but brilliant, much like everything that is contained in a lot of the things that you say, Pete. Simple but brilliant. But knowing that you have to put people first and listen to those you lead. And it doesn't have to be in a command setting where you're in charge of 250 or 2,500 Marines and sailors on amphibious shipping. At the personal level, at the tribal level, at the family level, at the informant level, being able to connect with those people. And the thing that I always talk about is having that power of human connection. And really, to get to that stage, to really connect with people, you have to put yourself aside first. And I think that lends itself to like all of the other that he lays out in the book as well, that Robin talks about, don't judge people, and to be rational and generous and giving people credit where credit's due, I think are all important things and great tenets of leadership. So there's so many similar ties that, I was impressed with Robin's work, his extensive career in the federal government. And I think that there's always those things that tie us together as professionals, and those that lump ourselves into this group of protectors, those who take care of those who can't take care of themselves. And Robin's most certainly one of those people. And when we overlap those circles and we tell our stories, they're all told through a slightly different lens, but they all make sense to those of us that have led a life of service. And I think that that's probably, as a commander, one of the things that was most important to me. And that's something that, again, I always say this, is you only gain that understanding through training and experience and lifetime and years of experience. And that's when the wisdom comes. And that's when you write a book, right, Robin?
God, I'm just dumbfounded, and I'm very humbled by your words. I can't thank you enough for those. Very, very heartfelt, and especially because you have the command overseas, which I never had. I've been very blessed that all my work, in the world of counterintelligence has been done domestically. But it's great and gratifying to hear that all the core human elements are exactly the same. It's about how do you, it's the power of the human connection. Absolutely. And yeah, it is through lifelong experience of wisdom of knowing and being very cognizant of your shortcomings. And, I know I told the story in the book, and I tell it so many times, so often. And, when I got my first rating as a brand new second lieutenant in my first squadron, I was ranked last out of 14. I asked my major, who thank God I'm actually friends with on Facebook now, and I thanked him 30 years later for showing me at least that there's something off. And all he said to me was, you need to be a better leader, and you need to make it about everyone else but yourself. And those are very subjective words. And so I took it to heart. I take everything to heart. Know yourself and seek self-improvement is something I learned in the Marine Corps and 14th leadership principle. And I hold true to it and every day of my life. And I made it my life's goal to understand what he meant by that. So basically, you're right. What I wrote about, my books and what I write about is how not to be the moron I was born to be. It's my manual on how to.
Who was the major? What was his name?
His name was Gary Warren.
Gary Warren. Hey, Gary, if you're listening, boom, there you go.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Great.
What's cool too, Robin? All of those things that you mentioned, and I'm going to speak about this today. I'm up in San Francisco right now, going to speak to Fleet Week as the keynote.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's such an honor. I'm so humbled. And the things you wrote about, and you mentioned leadership traits and principles and know yourself, seek yourself, but there's so many words that aren't listed on those charts that we as Marines and soldiers are taught in the schools of professional warriors, like love and compassion and understanding. And you get that. You're one of the good leaders that understands that you have to read in between those lines and apply those words and make that connection with people and, put the people first. That's how you become a good leader. That's how you become a success in everything you do. And that spills over to your transition from the military into the private sector, and whatever it is you're passionate about. That's really what makes you a success.
Absolutely, Scott. And as a matter of fact, I mean, you hit on that key point. And matter of fact, I always sit back and analyze, what am I actually doing? What am I actually seeing the great ones do? And I actually coined a new phrase. I'm working on another book right now, but the one after that one, I'm probably going to call it something like stempathy. And it's a combination of stoicism, which is basically cause and effect, which maintains objectivity, which that's what leaders do, and empathy, which you cannot inspire people to follow you or to cooperate or, again, human connection without empathy. So I call it stempathy, which is that combination of stoicism, which is pure objective cause and effect, with massive empathy towards the others you're engaging. So, but I'm totally on board with you. It's about understanding others.
See, Pete, that's what you get when you get two guys on the show from two vastly different educational backgrounds. Big 20-pound brain on Brad over here coming from the United States Naval Academy. And then you got Huesing, Illinois State.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee you, I'm not the 2030, I'm not the 5-pound lightweight brain. I barely got through that place. My son's a freshman there right now. He's a plebe, and he just had 6-week exams, and the guy's got a 4.0, and he's looking for me for guidance. I'm like, dude, I have no idea what you're doing. You're just killing it, and I'm a moron.
Let me just say, like, when I talk about stability operations, like the first thing is to make mistakes. I totally own my mistakes, and I try to identify them first. And you guys are talking about how dumb you are. I just had to mouth openly while I read the instructions on how to cook Spam on the Spam can. I'm like, oh my God, my mouth is moving.
That is perfect. When you figure that out, send it to me.
Jerry, don't let Pete cook Spam.
Yeah, okay, so this is awesome. This is why I love having Robin on, and especially Scott, because they bring in such different dynamics. I have no idea where we're headed right now, and I love that. Robin,
talk about Spam.
Yeah, we were talking about socks with Mike Baker, for crying out loud. So Robin, first off, I don't want to let you undermine what you did because you did it domestically, because you're the only agency that can really do that stuff at a federal level. So you guys that is the major leagues. So you don't get to downplay that. And then also, as you're going out and trying to figure out this impossible thing, and then you're going to go encounter someone, Timothy McVeigh would be someone that you're trying to prevent from existing. And that's someone who's struggling with reality for whatever reason. How do you suspend your normal wiring to be able to deal with someone who doesn't have normal wiring? Like, how do you get around that? Because that's like, I've got to talk to people that have cut people's heads off, and there's some damage that comes with that. How do you deal with that?
So for me, it's really simple. I keep my ends goals in mind, and my ends goals is always protect national security, protect my community, protect my family. And so from that point on, I always ask myself, is what I'm about to do going to help or hinder that? And I can guarantee you, the second I start judging anyone's behavior, their actions, their shields will be up. There will be no cooperation. There'll no be information flow. And so I can't do that. And another part of what I've done throughout probably my last bunch of years is I absolutely refuse to allow another human being to bother me. In other words, I refuse to be unsettled by a human being. And so what I do is, as soon as I see or hear or deal with someone that might be unsettling in that way, and believe me, even on my side of the road, espionage subjects, very, very rarely, that's the only thing going on in their lives. They usually got a lot of other pretty creepy things that they've done. And so it always then comes down to help me understand who you are and how it is you came to be. Because once you start getting context and you start understanding the things that they were impacted by in their lives, from the earliest days, between the prefrontal cortex being hardened and formed before the age of 25, 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with someone that's been through a lot of interesting and horrible trauma. And, it's one of those things that I always believe, walk a day in my shoes and tell me you wouldn't make the same choices. because it's about understanding and validating, because validating means you're going to seek to understand them. It doesn't mean you necessarily agree with them. It means you're seeking to understand. Human beings a lot of times don't need you to say I agree with you. They just want to be heard. And so by seeking to understand, what you're doing is you're listening, and without judging. Again, that judging thing is really critical. And as I tell case agents when I'm consulting, and if it can't be you because it's so unsettling for you to deal with this human being, and you can't help but judge, I said, that's fine. Just realize it cannot be you that does the interview or the interaction. It cannot, because I guarantee you shields will be up. There will be no information flow, and you won't service the ultimate end mission. That's protect you, the safety, security, and prosperity of you, yourself, your family, and your country.
And I want to just jump on that and say, whatever you're selling in our line of work, you have got to believe it. And if you don't believe in this trust and this suspension of ego and all these things, the folks on the other end are better at this than you are. They will sense it. Especially like Iraqis and Afghans, they've been through so much. They are like abused kids and abused people. They don't give trust easily. So if you spend time trying to fake it, they already aren't going to give it. So you have to earn it, and you can't earn it by being fake. I don't know how to do that. I don't think Robin does either. And I would challenge any of my peers. It's easy to think that you can, but you have to test for trust too to see if it's really there.
And that's what the next book's about. But and you're so right. You absolutely need congruence between what's being said and the emotion that you have. And so anytime I would do a consultation, I actually would outlaw for myself or anyone I'm working with to refer to anyone as a subject, a target, or anything like that. You cannot dehumanize anyone ever, because that starts getting in your mindset, and now you're judging. You think you're better than they are, and you're not. You're just another human being with different priorities, different resources. And so we just have to engage to figure out what our overlapping resources are and our overlapping priorities are. And 99.9% of the time, that overlapping priority with all human beings is safety, security, and prosperity for me, myself, and my family. And when you start with that, then you work backwards, and you can start understanding where the divergence happened and understand why it happened, again, without judging it.
I want to go to that seminar to learn how to not let other people bother me, because that is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. As I'm driving to San Diego airport yesterday in traffic from my house in Temecula, I'm freaking out. And that uncontrollable situation, not even having to deal with people personally, but just those situations, to not let those external factors really press in on you and not have an emotional reaction. I don't know. That's such a learned skill. And you mentioned all of the physiological and developmental aspects of your prefrontal cortex being developed by a certain age, which I understand. Did that development for you occur early on in your life, so you had that capacity to not be affected by that, or is that something you learned later on in life?
No, that was much later in life. Again, I was, as I said earlier, my books are my manuals on how not to be the moron I was born to be. My default is to take out a baseball bat, and I will fix problems with a baseball bat.
And that's the next title of your book, How Not to Be the Moron You Grew Up to Be.
Yeah, that'll probably be the subtitle of it, no doubt.
That'll be a seller. People love swear words on books, and
that would be good. But yeah, no, it's definitely learned trait, and I wish I could say I'm 100% at it. When I'm actually cognitive and honoring reason, like I talk about, I can nail it probably about 99% of the time. But in times when we get relaxed, in times when our guard is down, in times when we're going back to the core of who we are, some of these things can leak in. And like you, put me in traffic, I'm a New Yorker at heart, and it is a brain wreck if you get in front of me.
I've been doing this with Pete for a while now, and I always say I'm going to give a true confession. So I'm going to turn the map around, and I'm going to pin it on Robin and say, give us a true confession of the last time you blew it when you let someone get under your skin.
Okay, so you want it specific to someone.
Well, you don't have to drop names. I mean, if it's Pete.
Oh, no, I'm being
under the bus.
It's always me.
It's actually where someone's actually gotten under my skin. It's been a long time. Because again, I actually refuse to let someone bother me. So let me think for a few minutes. It would probably be work related. Oh, actually, maybe not. Yeah, I can't. I mean, I'll call them minor blips in the force, minor quavers in the universe, where things bother me. And basically, it'll be in situations where I see a lack of an attempt to understand another human being. And that's what really bothers me. So, I mean, recently I've lost a couple. I've lost a neighbor, and I've lost. I'm a volunteer pilot for Angel Flights for a group, Patient Airlift Services, and I've recently lost a patient. She passed away from cancer, and what struck me the most, which bothered me the most, was people holding on to preconceptions that weren't necessarily accurate, especially with a neighbor. I took time because, neighbors can bother each other. You share a fence, you got barking dogs, you got situations in life. And instead of what some people will continue to do is to allow very specific situations hold their judgment hostage about the entire person and human being. Mm-hmm. And that's what that's what I refuse to do. So if there's an element that someone's doing or something that they're doing is annoying, I will immediately dive in to look past that one element to see the greatness of who they actually are and see their brilliance, see their strengths, and hence you're developing your own understanding of them. And when you do, that tolerance ensues, and where you actually have great human connection, as you say. And when I see a lack of people attempting to do that sometimes, when it has an impact, a very hurtful impact on others, that's what I say bothers me.
So how does the average person assimilate that? Let's use a rudimentary example. You're at the grocery store, some guy jams his way in front of you, or some lady, and you think just basic common sense. How do you not let that affect you? And then how do you balance that from being somebody that understands, well, maybe they're having a bad day, maybe they're doing this for this reason, and not being a pushover, not being taken advantage of in everyday settings?
Well, you can make a choice. To me, it always comes down to, if you want to be full of anger, resentment, and discontentment and live with stress the rest of your day, go right ahead. Ignore it, or you can battle back against it, take the verbal bat out and call them out on the carpet for the rude behavior from your perspective, not from theirs, because I guarantee you very rarely do people go out of their way to do something to you. They're just being who they are in that moment. And once you realize that, once you can get over yourself and the fact that no one's doing anything to you, they're just being who they are, and you just got in the way. So once you can first realize that, then you can actually just make a decision, make a choice. If you want to dive in a little bit and have a conversation and say, hey, I'm so sorry, it looks like you're in a really big rush. How inconsiderate of me to get in your way? I mean, how hard is that? And what you're doing is, see, people sometimes will think you're being a pushover for engaging and validating someone, but you're actually not, because I actually set a goal. My goal is to de-escalate my brain and have a healthy engagement. And so people that actually set goals and start executing according to those goals, they're the ones actually leading. Now, if I got to give you words that you need so you can de-escalate to the other person, so I can actually make you feel better for engaging me, who's the one leading? I'm not a pushover. I'm actually taking very conscious efforts about how I'm going to engage you.
I like to think about how when you park your car, and I don't know about where you're at, Robin, but parking spots have gotten extremely skinny where we're at here in Orange County. And everybody gets upset, like, oh, that asshole parked like that. And then I try to remind myself, man, I barely can fit into parking spots sometimes. And sometimes I've got to favor 6 inches over, which is over the line, but I don't have a choice because the person next to me has already parked that way. And I'm not mad at them because I don't know what the choice was when they got there. Like, as long as I can park and get to my business, I'm like, it's all good. I'm not trying to be a jerk to anybody. And I'm just trying to keep everybody banging into my car or their car, and it's such a different way of looking at it that I don't get riled up about those things at all anymore. Like, it just does not bother me because I'm not going to put the energy into that mental construct.
Because it takes energy. And the other thing, too, is once you actually take the time, here's a guarantee of human behavior. Human beings are exceptionally predictable. And that's what I'm writing about next is predictability, which some people call trust. And I don't call it trust. Trust is based on liking and ethics and morals. Trust is actually predictability. What can I reasonably predict you're going to do in each situation? And here's what's predictable. I can guarantee you're always going to act in your own best interest. And so if I take the time to figure out and understand at your core what you think your best interests are, in other words, how you view safety, security, and prosperity for you, yourself, and your family, and the actions that you think you need to take to achieve it, I know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to do all those things. And I don't judge it, because every human being is always going to act in their own best interest because we're genetically and biologically coded for it. Now, when you can overlap your best interest with their best interest, well, now we have friendship. Now we have collaborations. Now we have, recruitments, if that's the case. That's all it is. Understanding the priorities of others and providing resources for them. And when you see people acting in those ways, again, no one's doing anything to you. All they're doing is acting in what they think is their own best interest.
No, I'm stymied. I mean, it's it really is something that you have to be constantly attuned to your own emotions and your own awareness of how you're going to react. I mean, this is
mindfulness.
This is such a fascinating quality that people possess, and Robin's most certainly one of that. You're literally training your brain to think 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead in anticipation of those events of others, and to be able to do that, I think has so many applications, not only in society, just to be a better person and not be viewed by the other 10 people standing in line to call you an asshole because you blew off the handle. But if we can take that approach and train our young officers and our young leaders in the military to do that, I think there's so many different applications militarily. And Robin can certainly understand these. He was in the Marines as well. We probably don't do a great job at that at our entry level schools. And I would say probably at some of our more senior graduate level schools at the command and staff level, the Naval War College, where we train our senior officers to be these great tacticians and study these great works of military prowess and history. But we're really forgetting about all of those important human aspects and the human qualities that make you a better leader overall at the 10, 20, 30,000 foot level. I think there's so many applications.
There are a lot of barriers between yourself and these things that you're talking about. And one of the advantages of what Robin is proposing is, when you look at day-to-day goals, like what is my goal? My goal is to go into this coffee shop and publish this show. And so I'm just trying to get from here to there. Why would I let something in between get in there and distract me from that thing, like someone parking over a line or whatever? Like I was going to go hike with one of my a lifelong friend of mine, and this is a great thing to be able to go do, but I was getting aggravated by the process of getting from home to the hiking spot. And then I was able to go, wait, I'm going to go spend time with someone I love dearly and I never get enough time with. This is really where my focus needs to be. I'm going to get there. I can't be late because, when you arrive, you've arrived in this case. So I was able to focus my frustration on not being frustrated and actually enjoying, even before I got to him, my friend Dave, who I was going to see. Or I could take the other way where I'm all frantic and I'm pushing against an immovable object that I can't change because someone had a car accident. And it's just it's a different way of, you're sort of like life gives you these immediate little gates and little hurdles to try to trick you into going, over them or through them. When really you're like, I just ignore those things. I'm going to see my friend Dave. I'm going to have a great day. Let me put my mindset on that and not worry about these other things that are really not even inconsequential. They're completely unimportant.
So, Robin, how long does it take you, or would it take a person to train themselves to really apply those tenets that you talk about? With the code of trust. I mean, how long does it take? And then once you learn them, let's say over, 10, 12, 24 hours, how regimented do you have to be to apply those things from a mental sustainment, like a mental training program, like the sustainment training for your brain? Like you have to do these things. I mean, you obviously, it's part of your daily routine, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is. It is now.
Were you like this Jedi warrior, like the Force is with Robin?
It's fun because it's a journey and not a destination. But like with everything in life, I think really the first step that was important for me was realizing that, and humbling up and realizing, and taking accountability for the world around you, the world that you're creating by your own actions and your own words and your own deeds. And never, ever placing the blame of any situation on anyone else but yourself. And so taking accountability for how people react to you is totally you. They are just reacting to you and your actions and words. And so having that kind of mindfulness to realize that you control the words that come out of your mouth. And that combined with the sense that I really got fed up with being frustrated, angry, discontent. In other words, I just got sick of brain noise, and I refuse to do crazy brain. I refuse to have all those negative emotions, because all those negative emotions completely cloud your judgment. And the bedrock for absolutely everything with me is relationships. I have found that the healthier relationships you have, the deeper, trusting, healthier relationships you have, you can accomplish absolutely anything. You know, I think I said the last time on the show, and I harp on it every day of my life because I see it more and more. You can be a rocket scientist with a 100-pound brain, but you might as well be a moron on top of a mountain without relationships, because you will achieve nothing without healthy relationships. And so how fast? It depends on the individual. How fast you want to live a healthier, easier life. Some people thrive on stress. Some people enjoy resentment. Some people, love those negative emotions and they thrive on them. So they'll never move beyond the path that they've chosen. And on the other hand, I have my son who's 18 years old at the Naval Academy, and he's been exercising the code of trust for the last couple of years. And I'm sitting in awe of him executing relationships, and he's doing well because of healthy relationships. Yes, he has genetics and biology for success, but it all came down to relationships and his cognitive thought and understanding. That's what's behind all success, is good, healthy relationships.
Do you look at your son at the academy now and think, yeah, he's got such a step up on the other guys there because you've indoctrinated him into this code of trust? I mean, that's got to be gratifying too, knowing that you've prepared your son, because that.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner, and I wanted to highlight a special veteran today. I want to introduce you to Philip Dana. Philip.
Thank you, Pete. I'm Philip Dana, Vice President of Human Resources at Bridgepoint Education here in sunny San Diego, California. I am the 20th man in my family to serve in the military, including Richard Henry Dana of Dana Point, who wrote the book 2 years before the mast about sailor and minority rights. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've created a career of helping veterans transition.
Tell us some of the things that the companies can do to nail down a good veteran hiring program.
Pete, good question. I think companies can do a lot of different things. I've been going around talking about 8 simple tips in doing those types of programs, but a couple of the big ones that got the ahas going in the audience is, one, hiring veterans doesn't have to be straight out of the military. We are a highly networked group of individuals. Most of us connect with other veterans on social media. Most of us belong to alumni or American Legion or help veteran non-for-profits. We stay engaged in service, and to be able to tap that and getting director and VP level candidates that happen to be veterans is a phenomenal addition to your recruiting program. That's one. The other tip is you might be surprised what resources you already have in your organization. For example, here in San Diego, the largest vet per capita city in the United States, very veteran heavy, right? With Navy and Marine Corps. If you have 10 employees, it's very likely you have at least one vet and probably 1 to 2 spouses. And spouses are often overlooked as part of the veteran talent pool. And if you just find those folks inside your organization, ask them to help. They're not going to say no, and put them to work. You might be surprised what they come back with.
Nice. Good one. Yeah, the spouses are huge. Give us one more, then we're going to get back to the show.
Yeah, I think the third tip to companies that are thinking about hiring veterans is veterans are not homogeneous. You don't hire veterans for all leadership. Guess what? Not all veterans lead. And believe me, not all veterans are good at it. And so I love all the rhetoric, and I love all the momentum and all the verbiage that you hear and see in articles about hiring veterans, but I wouldn't hire all veterans the same. You're not going to put a Navy nuke in the same job you would a Marine Special Forces leader, for example. Different cultures. Focus on the culture, focus on the values and the competencies that align, and find the match inside of the veteran talent pool. don't treat them all the same.
How do folks find you on social media so they can maybe bring some questions to you and talk to you about what you do?
Well, my name is Philip Dana with one L, and I am easily found on LinkedIn or Twitter. LinkedIn is my favorite battleground.
All right, I love it. Your favorite battleground. Cool. Thanks, man.
Indoctrinated him into this code of trust. I mean, that's got to be gratifying too, knowing that you've prepared your son because that environment, to be immersed in that culture at the Naval Academy, is pretty grueling. And it's really, for those that don't understand, to break it down simple, it's like being in boot camp for 4 years straight. It's that intense.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, because I'm just happy that he is enjoying it. Matter of fact, one of his weaknesses, and it's one of mine too, or a lot of people, is procrastination. I was really, because most institutions like this and the military boot camp and all thing, they're really designed to highlight your deficiencies, and so you spend all your time working on your deficiencies and overcoming them. I think one thing that helps people beforehand, when you apply for something or go into something like the Naval Academy, if you know what those things are ahead of time and you've actually already strategized and how you're going to work your entire life to overcome it, he's actually thriving. I thought it was going to uncover his weaknesses, and it wound up unlocking his strengths because he was mindful about what they are. And at the end of every single day, he just had 6-week exams. He did really, really well. At the end of every conversation is remain humble, remain a resource to the prosperity of others, and maintain relationships. Because the second you don't, you're going to start going down the road of stress and failure, guaranteed.
Dang.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And then you have this lab and your son going through this extremely stressful time, and you see him thriving. It's just more validation. Can you talk a little bit about the transformation you've gone through between the Code of Trust and this new book on predicting behavior? What have you added in where you're like, I have to tell this whole new thing, and it's going to take me 300 plus pages to do it?
Sure. So what was interesting was again, it's a natural progression, because I was so focused on the behavior I had to have in order to inspire trust, which was what the last book was about. What I started realizing and started witnessing was I was continued focusing so hard on understanding because step number 2 that I use when trying to inspire trust is understanding what the priorities of others are, their needs, wants, dreams, and aspirations. And what happened was I started focusing so hard on that and so deeply on that, because that's such an important thing to know. Because if you're not talking in terms of the priorities of others, you're wasting your breath, because it has to be important to them. What I found was that once I was really understanding what the priorities of others were, they're becoming exceptionally predictable. Because if I understand what's important to you, your priorities, and how you see prosperity from your point of view, and I offer you resources for those things, your behavior is exceptionally predictable. You're going to take advantage of resources that are going to further your priorities. And so that became predictability, and some people like to call predictability trust. And so it's really about, the next book is really about, it's called right now, Who Can I Trust? And it's about removing the subjective portion of it, from going from liking someone to actually what can I really predict you're going to do in each individual situation. That way, you're not misassociating liking someone with trusting them to do X, Y, and Z. Meanwhile, they have no demonstrated capabilities to do those things. Because if they fall short on the things that you're expecting them to do because you like them, what happens in a relationship? It goes downhill. You get resentful. You get angry. And because I refused to have those emotions, I needed a new checklist to make sure that I can reasonably predict what you're going to do in each and every situation, so that I don't allow myself to think negatively of you ever. Isn't that kind of weird?
Tell us the proposed title again.
Who Can I Trust? Who Can I Trust? Yeah, who can you trust?
I have a recommendation. You can have this for free. In the world of putting cuss words on the covers of book again, which seem to be selling well, is maybe you could call it How Not to Fuck Other People Over, and then just bleep out. Like Mark Newman, his book came out like 2 years ago, I think, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And then all these books with like shit Trump says, and they're selling. Like, people love a good cuss word. It's like potty humor for kids. They're like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy this. Oh, I said a bad word." So you can have that for free. And if I see that, you can just put my name, like cover title designed by Scott Huesing, and then
I'm working with Penguin on this one, so I'll let them know because they're discussing the title right now. I'll let them know that.
It's like, do I sacrifice my intellectual prowess and reputation by doing that, or do I want to sell a bunch of books, or really make my story, be broadcast through the loudest loudspeaker? As long as they buy the book, my message is getting out there. It's such a balance as a writer and as an artist to, well, am I selling my soul because I took this advice, or trust me, it's out there. And,
well, you publish a book, and you publish things. So it's, you don't write books to make money. You write books so you can get your message out.
Yeah.
So people will want you to share your message with them. So, but I mean, if you happen to have a bestseller and sell millions, well, then that's good. But it's not,
all is forgiven, right? Don't take that shot. Oh, he made it. Oh, good shot. Good shot.
It's about getting, Joe Navarro, good friend of mine, retired agent, wrote the book, What Everybody Is Saying, and numerous books afterwards. He just came out with the nonverbal dictionary. He is such a great guy. He's been my mentor for years, and all he's always told me was, Robin, everyone has great information, especially with our background, the three of us. Shame on us if we don't get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So use whatever medium you can, use whatever venue you can, but publish. If you have information that can benefit others, it's the onus is on you to get it out there. So I totally agree.
He came out with a nonverbal dictionary, huh? That's got to be interesting.
His stuff is fantastic. Actually, Robin, I'm going to bug you offline to get some good contact information from him, because I want to, actually, I've had another author from the show. She's been on, and she does crime stuff, and she's dying to talk to him. So I want to give him the opportunity to come on.
In our line of work, both Pete and me and you, that nonverbal communication, I've studied body language my entire career, and foundation, Alan Pease, his book Body Language is just, the groundwork for understanding those verbal cues. But yeah, very fascinating stuff for anyone that wants to not only be more successful, but develop better interpersonal relationships and understand the human dynamic. Is that nonverbal communication is so vastly important. And you started the show by saying how you initially go into a situation and you automatically understand people are going to be defensive. They're not going to give information. They don't want to be a source of information. And you can do that without even saying a word, without having them speak, just by looking at those people. I'm quite sure.
Absolutely. I started as a real disciple of Joe's with nonverbals. And you kind of focus on your little areas that you kind of gravitate to. And I still use my nonverbal assessments because basically for me, I'm assessing, and I'm mostly looking just at the face unless I have the benefit of looking at video recording, because important for me when I'm communicating is I have to hear the words, and I'm looking for congruence with words and what I'm getting facially from them, and whether I'm getting comfort or whether I'm inducing stress. Because what I'm ultimately going for, what's my impact on them? What's the impact of my words, my behaviors, and my actions? Am I inducing stress, or am I inducing comfort? So absolutely, nonverbals I'm always looking, am I creating that helpful and a healthy situation? And you can tell by, do I have comfort nonverbals, or do I have stress nonverbals?
You talked a little bit about your stuff with the new book and everything, and I know we talked about this last time, but in an effort to continue to get this good stuff out there, I'm gonna kind of repeat myself a little bit. But one of the systems I developed in terms of dealing cross-culturally was to understand, and I think you'll get this with me, is how do they make decisions and what is their goal? And if I really focused in that quadrant, the other stuff doesn't matter. The other stuff I can tell you what the outcomes are: passive aggressive behavior, perceptions of dishonesty or incompetence. And if you focused and you're getting those communicated actions back at you, that should tell us, like, okay, I'm not in sync with what this person needs and how they decide what they need. Does that resonate with what you're talking about?
It's spot on with so my 5 steps, one is what's your goal, and then reverse it. So why should they want to? Step 2 is understand their priorities. And what you just stated was you're understanding their priorities. You're seeking to understand what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve, what their stated end state is. That's goals and priorities. And again, that is so paramount. Years ago when that major told me you need to make it about everyone else but yourself, I like, how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
Well, the first step of doing that is actually figuring out what their goals are and their priorities.
Yeah.
Because that step of doing that, their brain is rewarding them because you are seeking their thoughts and opinions. You're talking in terms of their priorities. You're validating them non-judgmentally, and you're empowering them with choices. Those 4 cornerstones of communication to me, I build at least one of those 4 things into everything I say and everything I write, because it guarantees me and it guarantees them that this entire conversation is 100% about them. Because every human being, we seek to be affiliated with meaningful groups and organizations, and we want to be valued by those groups and organizations. And the best way to do that, again, is you're seeking their thoughts and opinions. You're talking in terms of their priorities. You're validating those thoughts, opinions, and priorities non-judgmentally, and you're empowering them with choices where appropriate. That's it.
You're also removing the barrier. When you do get that negative value back, passive-aggressive behavior, that's just input into your system. Like, I've missed a step. Let me back up. Like, if you allow it to be that, it's way more enabling.
Absolutely, because the first thing I ask myself when I get that kind of feedback is, all right, somewhere in here, I made it too much about me and not about them. Mm-hmm. What words did I just state? Did I just did I talk in terms of something that was important to me and totally obliterate what was important to them in the statement I just made? Because I induced that behavior, guaranteed.
Mm. Well, let me shift gears with all that and ask you to, again, I put you on the spot to give a true confession, but one of the things I always talk about as a leader is we wear this mask of command and we have to act a certain way. But one of the things I really subscribe to as I've gotten older, and I wish I'd have learned this earlier on in my career, is to share not only the wins and the successes of my experience and my training, but also the losses and those failures, and to be human and to share those with those you lead. And it's great to write a book that's a bestseller, and it sounds cool. It's a code of trust. Here's 5 things you can do by Robin Drake, and do this and you'll be masterful. But to share the failures, I think, is equally important. So you do those not to be viewed as somebody that's just a screw up, but someone that's human. And to be able to do that really helps people understand, like, this guy's willing to share all of those points along the road where he's fallen and slipped and gotten back up, not so he looks great in the eyes of others, but he does it so others won't fall into those same pitfalls. And I think that that's important. So what's one of the things that's most important to you, a failure or one of those times you've slipped that's really gotten you to where you are to be successful, where you could really share this with others so they'll succeed?
Absolutely. Well, I already shared my moronic years in the Marine Corps. I got better before I got out.
Yeah, but we breed a high school mentality in the Marine Corps at all ranks and levels. So we're all kind of moronic.
So I got a couple, obviously we all do. I call them humbling moments in life. Probably my strongest, where I was probably in about 4 or 5 years. I was still in New York City. I had my great Jedi master in the book. He's Jesse Thorne. In real life, his name's John. And I was getting this down. I was getting this source development thing down pretty good. And matter of fact, I was getting it so good that I was really getting a little full of myself. I thought, hey, I can have some fun with people. I can do all this fun stuff. And we had an individual that had been a former confidential human source of ours and had been closed because the individual he's in touch with, the Russian intelligence officer, had gone home and rotated out. So he'd been closed for a while. But anyway, we get a new guy in, and they reached out to this former source of ours. And I hadn't operated this guy before. The previous handler for him, he was already transferred out, but I called him on the phone and said, hey, do you think, and we'll call the guy Jeff. I said, do you think Jeff would be open for recontact and reopening? He goes, oh yeah, Jeff's a great guy. Just realized he's working on his PhD. He's a busy guy, but yeah, he's always a great help. No problem at all. And so I contact Jeff. I say, hey, Jeff, my name's Robin, local FBI guy. I understand you worked with so-and-so before. Love to get together and chat because I think one of our guys is back in touch with you. I'm thinking this is easy. Hardly, handled by someone else before. I'm a great source guy. And I get together with this guy, and, here's a guy who's a hard science PhD candidate. And I sat down and he said, so what specifically can I help you with? And I said, well, we'll get to that sooner or later, but hey, you like the Yankees? I'm really thinking about going to a Yankee game. When you want to go to Yankee game? And I started talking about where to go to eat. I'm talking about sports. And here's this guy that's a scientist working on his PhD, humoring me. And at the end of this cup of coffee, I'm thinking things went great. Go back to the office, do the paperwork, open them back up. I told Jeff, hey, I'll be back in touch with you in a couple of days. I reached back out and pick up his phone. I sent him an email. Won't answer the email. So after a couple tries of doing this, I did what any, jilted lover would do. I switched cell phones so he couldn't have caller ID, and I called on a different number, and he picked up. And I said, hey, Jeff, what's going on, man? Trying to get back together. And he goes, Robin, this isn't going to work out too well. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, it seems like you're not quite sure about what it is you need. And I'm kind of a busy guy. So, I apologize. I really can't do anything for you. And I felt about 2 inches tall because and I went and tell my boss, I said, we got to shut the guy down. And my boss looks at me and goes, no, come on, it's you're the human guy. I said, yeah, but I totally screwed this up. And I realized almost immediately why. I made that entire reaction completely about me. And I totally blew through all his priorities. I ignored them. I was self-centered. I was egocentric. I mean, all the total moronic things I could do as a human being, I totally did. And boy, I never let that happen again. So there you go. That's one great humbling moment, no doubt.
Man, way to screw it up, Robin.
Yeah, I know. I suck.
But it does take those lessons so that we can remind ourselves. Like I try to. Sebastian Junger gave all of us military guys a very challenging tasking, and he said, we're really divided here in this country, and I'm relying on you guys to help rally us in the middle. And I have struggled to try to figure out how to do that, because you can literally say all positive things, and the folks that want to be divided are just going to get mad at you because you proposed getting along, and right? Like, I think we should all work together and not just vote, but get involved in our own government at our own level and maybe get to know folks who disagree with us a little bit and see what we do agree on. Fuck you. Okay. But it's I respect Sebastian's tasking because I think it's a good one, but it is really challenging in practice to get folks to slow down and relax enough where I have a chance of even trying to get us to rally, because there's just so much negative things.
And Pete, I get asked this one a lot too. So how do you deal with someone like that? Whether it's a larger political frame or even in the workplace, basically the people that are so emotionally hijacked or the bully boss or something like that.
Yeah.
And to them, I say, you know what? There are people in the world that you cannot actually inspire them to change their behavior because they are completely happy with who they are today and the way they're interacting with the world. But the thing you can start doing, though, is they are feeding off of the reactions that they're inducing on others. So if you can start mitigating and neutralizing the reactions they're getting so they're no longer being fed the emotional reactions they're looking for, that's when their behavior starts changing. So when you can't make a difference with the individual because they're steadfast and hell-bent on being angry, then the thing to do is don't have that anger impact the people that are around them so they start becoming neutralized. In other words, the negative behavior is not being chemically rewarded in their brain by those things that they're reacting to. So I start working with the people around them because I get asked this a lot. So Robin, how are you so calm in all these things? I said, easy. I do this, this, and this. I see people understand why they are like they are, because they understand why they are like they are. They don't bother me. And so I start doing that. So you start calming the waters around them, and eventually they calm too. But you have to have patience, and you have to not let them bother you because they thrive on it. Angry people.
Well, I think it's interesting. Sebastian's name has come up, and he sent me an email this morning because I shared a video podcast I did with this good friend of mine up in Vancouver named Sarah Troy. And I mentioned his name because Pete and I love his work. It's from a non-military guy who immersed himself in the military and really put some skin in the game to help share those stories and has a very deep understanding with what our community goes through. I felt compelled to share with him just the video clip and say, hey, look at minute 24. I just wanted you to know that, again, you've made an impact on someone by what you shared and what you wrote. And I think that's always important. And I didn't ever seek that out as a writer when I wrote my story, but it is nice to know that you've made an impact. And, Robin, how many times have you gotten an email from a total stranger of the impact your work has made on them? I'm sure you get it from your son within your family, which is great, but do you have one story that's most memorable, recent, or when you launched the book last year on how you made an impact on some total stranger?
Yeah, I mean, as you know too, I mean, too many to count. And it's again, I get goosebumps and I get a little choked up thinking about it. Recently, I got an email from someone just struggling in their marriage. I mean, and out of all places here, I'm talking about spy stuff. And I got an email from someone that was struggling with, actually wasn't a marriage. She was engaged for like the longest time. And she was describing a situation where she wasn't being valued. And yet, she's getting all, it was heart-wrenching and heartfelt. And I felt really horrible for her. And I just asked a couple simple questions. I said, why do you enjoy doing unhealthy relationships? And she wrote back, I mean, I got the silent pause you could feel because she never considered what she was doing was unhealthy. And all she wrote back was, oh my God, you just changed my life with one statement. Wow. I was like, well, okay. Because the big thing I believe in, I don't give advice and guidance ever because people want to make their own choices and decisions. I do what I call discovery questions. And that's why I love that sympathy thing, because when you're empathetic towards what other people are going through, when you understand it and take the time to understand it, but you can maintain that objectivity because you're stoic and with cause and effect, it allows you to ask questions so that they can discover the path that they're on, so they can make choices to further what they're actually trying to achieve. And what she wanted was very simple. She wanted a good, healthy relationship. And that's all I asked her. I said, so why is it that you're with this guy who doesn't seem to have a healthy relationship in mind? Or actually, I think the first question I asked her, is this a healthy relationship? I don't think she had ever asked that question before. So
yeah. And when you start off with a work like yours that is really geared towards our profession and our networks, when you get something like that back, it is pretty cool to know that you've bridged some gap from a social standpoint or from a I don't know, psychological standpoint in her case where she's dealt with this. And, in my realm, I shared an email it started off, I've been anti-military my entire life. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I'm getting war basher and poison. The next sentence was, until I read your book and I really understood what the truest definitions of the words sacrifice and service meant and what you guys really went through. Awesome. And to understand that, man, this is everything we're talking about in today's messy political climate where we've forgotten to be Americans and less Democrat and Republican, like we were talking about with Roger Clinton, who was crying on the show. So if you want to shed a few tears and get emotional and choked up, Robin, that's totally cool. Roger Clinton was doing it in public at a cafe in LA. So, but it's really powerful to understand that you write one thing or you publish one thing and you want to share this because this is your intent going in. When you get all those far-reaching inputs from others outside of our circle, I think that just really speaks volumes to what you've done with this great book, The Code of Trust, and how it has so many other applications. It's really something to be proud of.
Thanks, and that's the goal from the start point. I mean, with each publisher I've had, they said, how do you see the book positioned in the marketplace? And that's always the toughest question because I love all the market because it really speaks to every single human being wants to feel valued and affiliated with meaningful groups and organizations. And how do you demonstrate that? It really just comes down to that. And that's why I love when I teach and share, I use email examples from us talking to teachers, recruiting sources, spies, dealing with strangers and challenging situations with neighbors, because it's the same communication style is exactly the same with everyone. There is no difference. Every single human being is seeking the same thing. They just want the priority service. They just want safety, security, and prosperity for them and their families. And how are you going to communicate it and how are you going to be resourced for it?
Those are absolutely the best testimonials that anybody that wants to help others can ever get. I mean, accolades from fellow authors and forwards from great guys like Joe Navarro or celebrity endorsements are fine, but hearing from those that you've made an impact on, like that young lady, are just the best.
They're very humbling, definitely humbling, and I'm appreciative of all, no doubt. I like yours too.
So this is what's great about these Spy versus Spy episodes is, folks want to understand like what we do, and it is fascinating, but look at the complexity, like our day-to-day life and how you walk around and how you frame things. I'm doing similar things, You just are better at writing about it and getting paid to do it. But the ability to frame that enables you to unlock other people to do things and say things that weren't otherwise possible. And that ability to compel people, comes from your counterintelligence background, but now is applicable in all of these myriad ways where your immediate world can be a better place just by reframing several things and working constantly at that. You make mistakes, I make mistakes. We make mistakes all the time in interpersonal communication, but the recognizing and the constantly tinkering and polishing and sanding and improving enables you to collect good people, create wonderful things, and politics all of a sudden are sort of inconsequential because you're really in your immediate world doing something that matters and helping to improve lives because you're making it about something more than yourself.
It's so funny and so true, Pete. And it's so funny because, here we are, three of us talking about the world of counterintelligence and all the spy stuff. And everyone always thinks it's so much more complicated than it is. And my main three anchors for everything I do and every relationship I try to foster is, number one, is a healthy, happy professional relationship. I will honor that above all else. In order to accomplish that, I will have open, honest communication and full transparency because I will not have that healthy relationship without all those things. And that's including self-awareness and mindfulness about myself. And third, I make myself an available resource for the prosperity of others with no expectation of reciprocity. Because if I honor those three things, I will have a relationship with someone that wants to have a relationship with me. As I've said numerous times, I'd rather have 7 people on board with me giving me 120% of their effort willingly than 50% giving me 10% reluctantly. I go for those deep relationships because I'll tell you what I have 7 folks on board I call my Magnificent 7 because these 7 people giving you 120%. You get 1 to 2 levels of Kevin Bacon going. That degree of separation. They will find the person we need to get us what we need, guaranteed.
I will just close because I have to get prepped for combat here and go meet the guys up at Fleet Week. But hey, I just want to say that it's a real pleasure being on the show with Robin and as always with you, Pete. And what a great message. And always grateful and humbled to have another person like Robin in our circle, and as Sebastian would say, in our tribe, which Mike McNamara says Sebastian stole that word from him, but he hasn't gotten credit for it back yet. But just really honored and great to be part of the show, and look forward to talking to you again, Robin.
Thanks, Scott. It was great meeting you as well. Thanks for the well thought out questions. You can tell you really went through the material. It's always appreciated. I love your content as well. And as always, great discussion, Pete. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, man. Semper Fi, brother.
Hoorah.